Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I got a great interview for you today. Mark Kearney, a new investor who has made some recent acquisitions, and we're going to dive in, sort of uncover that, sort of talk about where it all started, and then talk about where he's growing. So, welcome to the show, Mark. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Mike. I'm doing great. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I look forward to hearing about your story and asking some questions. I know a lot of people that watch my channel are impressed by some of the big shots that come on, but really where I think we want to do is we want to bring people that have got their first deal, got their second deal, just so they can show that the beginning can work. You can execute and move forward. So very intrigued by your story.
Okay, great, great. I'm glad to share it. Hopefully I can help some people out with what I say.
There you go. Well, why don't we just dive in? Why don't you give a quick bio on sort of where your business is today, kind of unit count, kind of where you are in the country, just sort of talk about what keeps you busy in real estate investing today for a few minutes.
Okay, sure, sure. Well, basically, I live on the East Coast. I'm actually in the state of Virginia, kind of in the Shenandoah Valley, where the mountains are. It's real beautiful here.
Yeah.
But I grew up in a different state. I actually grew up in Maryland. But I've been starting in real estate almost exactly 2 years ago, buying my first single-family home. And in 2 years' time, I've been fortunate enough to go from one single-family home up to three single-family homes and one triplex. So I have four properties and six doors.
Very cool.
Currently.
Very cool. And a triplex. So that first house you referenced, that was your first investment house, or was that your first purchase and you live in that house?
That was my first investment property. The house that I live in, I bought it roughly 20 years ago. And I can dive into my story later, but I've never had a high-paying job. I can tell you more about that later.
There you go. Well, yeah. So let's talk about that first single-family house, that first rental, because that is where most people get stuck, right? They do the homework, they maybe even save the money, but then they get stuck. So tell us about the deal. Tell us why you liked it, and yeah, why don't you do that first?
Sure. Well, it was in the fall of 2016. I started thinking about owning or picking up some rental property, and I hadn't found any websites yet. I didn't read any books on real estate or find any websites, so it's kind of just my own mind and from friends. So I contacted a real estate agent that I know, and told her I was interested. So between her and myself, I think we picked out roughly 10 to 12 single-family homes we wanted to look at that were in the general price range we thought was a fair price range.
Okay.
And it was a tiring day because we drove around every property, did a thorough walkthrough, and then decided on the one that we thought was in the best condition, was in a good location to make a good rental, and we could get at a good price, charge like a fair rent that would be fair for the renter and
Yep.
for myself as a landlord.
Very cool. So was it like 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 2-car garage, or what do rental houses in Virginia look like? I have no idea.
Okay, this one is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house.
Okay.
It's basically just what I'll call a spec house almost. It's carpeted, nothing fancy about it, but it's located on top of a hill with a view in a residential area. But it's very close to an elementary school, a middle school, and there's also a fire department not far away from it. So it's in it's a middle-class neighborhood. And the house was built in 93, I think it was, so it wasn't too old.
Yeah. Very cool. I'm wondering, I've actually never, I don't know this answer. Since you mentioned it had a view, do renters pay for a view, or would you get the same rent if it didn't have the view? I actually have no idea.
Oh, well, I think with this one, I'd get the same rent either way. Because the view, I call it a view, but it's a distant view. It's not like you look at your front yard at a mountain in front of you. No, it's a distant view.
Okay. I didn't know. I mean, I assume, like if you have an oceanfront house or something that a view means something, but I had no idea. So I just thought I'd ask. So how long did it take to go from that first rental, that 3-1 house, to your second one? Was it 6 months, 9 months, a year? What was that timeline like?
Well, the first one I closed in January of 2017. And I guess about 6 months went by when I started thinking, oh, what if I pick up a second one? And so again, I contacted my real estate agent and we looked at a couple, but couldn't find the right one. And then she contacted me and said she knew of a home that was not on the market, that it was in sort of rough shape, and the seller had to sell it as soon as possible so we could get a better price on it. And that house turned out to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom.
Nice.
It's been upgraded about 3 or 4 years ago, where it had ceramic tile put in the kitchen, tile put in the bathrooms. A brand new roof was put on it a couple years ago. New carpet was put down.
Wow.
Painting. The full basement, they cut out a section of the basement wall and put French doors in to walk out.
Wow.
And did some other upgrades. But when I found it, though, the house was extremely dirty. Most of the belongings were left in there because the seller had to leave ASAP. But it was just like a junk pile.
Yeah.
So we got it at a better price. Cleaned it out, did some minor repairs, and brought it back to the condition it should have been in, basically. And then basically rented it pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, a lot of the properties I've bought the last 18 months or so have come with their own, I don't know what you want to call it, garbage pile or collection of junk. I'm happy to take a discount and pay somebody $1,000 to go in and clean it out, and dumpsters and all that. They're very profitable.
Right. They are. So, but with that house, say with my first house, I knew when I bought my first house it would need a new roof.
Yeah.
So I put a new roof on. That was no big deal. I mean, and I had the money saved up to do that. With the second house, besides just minor repairs, it really didn't seem like there was anything wrong with it. Home inspection didn't uncover anything. But then after the renter moved in, within the first 3 months, they called me one night and said there was a water leak coming from a wall, an internal wall.
Oh, no.
And what it was in the home, it's what's called Quest water lines. I don't know if you know anything about if they have Quest water lines where you're from.
No, that didn't happen here, but I've read about them. We definitely. Why don't you share a little bit after you tell your story about that?
Okay. Well, what I did, I went over there that night. It was probably 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Saw where the leak was. We tried to turn the water off to the house and found out that valve had been stripped out where we couldn't shut the water off.
No.
So, and it wasn't a major leak that was like gushing water, but it was like this fine spray coming out.
Yeah. But
I contacted the city where we live at, and they sent a guy out to shut the water off at the street, just to turn the water off.
Yeah.
So then the first thing to do, one of my contractor friends, he's a handyman. He came within a day, I think, fixed the pipe where the leak was, and then told me what his quote was to replumb the entire house. So I had the entire house replumbed.
Yeah, and again,
the good part about it was.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the good part about that was it's a full basement that's unfinished, and almost all the water lines were in the basement ceiling.
Oh, there
you go. So it's easier access.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So why don't we tell everybody why you had to replumb the house? Because the Quest water lines are, proven defective. Is that a right way to say it? There's an issue with them, I think.
Right. From the little bit I know about Quest, they came out, I could be wrong by fact, but I think they came out maybe in the 70s, and it was supposed to be the latest, greatest type of water line. But they found out in a decade or so that the water lines would get like pinholes in them and spray water out. And some really fancy, what I've read, really fancy homes, homeowners maybe have gone on vacation, they come home, and there's a lake inside of their house where it just flooded.
Yeah.
So you can Google it online, like Quest, and see there was lawsuit after lawsuit against the company. They did have an insurance policy because the company I believe went bankrupt, went out of business.
Yeah, sure.
And from what I found out, but the insurance policy paid out for homeowners to replumb their houses, but it expired sometime in the last 5 to 8 years ago. So it ran out of money. So somebody like myself, it was my expense to replumb it.
Yeah, no dice. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's, that's, again, it's interesting, right? And I say all the time that real estate's going to test you. That's That's a heck of a test, right? Because you did everything right, right? You had a home inspection. You had people come and look. I mean, I had never known to go look for Quest water lines. I bet you're going to look now, but this business will
Oh,
test.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious about how you're financing these.
Yeah.
Are these just straight up bank loans, 20% down, 80% first, or are they something more aggressive or more conservative? Are they owner finance? How did you finance these first couple of purchases?
Okay. Well, the very first one, I think I mentioned it in an email. I invest in stocks also,
Yes.
and I invested in an online bank. And I decided, well, with that online bank, I'm going to check them out for their mortgage rates. And so my very first mortgage for the first property was through an online bank. That I can't remember where I think their home office is on the West Coast somewhere. But we did it all via email and overnight mail and that sort of thing. But it worked out fine.
Good.
It's a 30-year fixed rate mortgage with that one.
Okay.
So, but then with my second home, I decided to contact a local credit union. And I ended up going, for my next two properties, I ended up going with my local credit union because they gave me better rates than almost any commercial bank.
Yeah.
I am putting 20% down on those. Oh, the very first house, though, when I was discussing rates, I could put 20% down, but they told me if I put 25% down, I would get something like 0.25% lower on the interest rate. And again, this is before I knew really anything about real estate investing. So I said, well, I'll put an extra 5% down to get that 0.25% drop.
Sure.
So I did put 25% down on that first house.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your triplex. So tell us how you found that, the kind of story. And then I guess where we'll go from there is have you seen a difference between managing triplexes versus managing houses? So why don't you talk about the deal first?
Sure. With the triplex, I guess about 4 or 5 months had gone by since my second house. Again, I spoke to the real estate agent who's a friend of mine. Told her, by that time I had found the website biggerpockets.com, read about multifamily homes. So I asked her, in this area, were there any duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes that might be available that weren't out of my price range? And I remember she was telling me that the area we live in, it's a small area, and the people that own these buildings tend to hang on to them long term. Sure. And they're hard to get. But then she told me that she was talking to another friend of hers who had a triplex, and he did want to sell it. He didn't want to put it on the market. He just wanted to sell it to another investor. And so I looked at it, found it. It wasn't an old building. It was built in 1995, but it was kind of, and hadn't had many repairs over the years, let's say. So I knew it was dirty, needed some work. But home inspection again went fairly well, no major issues. So then I went ahead and bought that one. Now the difference with the triplex and the single-family homes, they were empty when I bought them. The triplex had tenants in it when I bought it. Okay. Okay, and that I guess created another issue because there was work I wanted to do. Like I would have loved, when I bought my first two houses, one of the first things I did was paint the inside to make them look good on the inside. With the triplex, I couldn't really do that because there's tenants in there. Yeah. And pictures on the wall, furniture, and so on. So then, but basically, it went well because as soon as I closed on the 31st of May, which means on June 1st, I got 3 rent checks.
Not a bad deal.
That was kind of nice. Right.
Yeah. So again, just so we get a feel for the triplex, is it like all 2-bedroom, 1 bath, or what are kind of the basic stats of the triplex?
Triplex, each apartment is 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms.
Oh, okay.
If you look at it from the front, it looks like a duplex. That's 2 stories. Okay, so for the front is brick, so it looks pretty nice. And then there's a basement apartment around back. That's the entire width of the building. And it's still the same square footage, but it's all one level. The 2 apartments upstairs have stairs in them. Okay. So they're all 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bathroom. Again, nothing fancy about them, but they're carpeted, just your basic apartments.
That's okay. That's
I
great. And
guess.
again, yeah, in smaller areas, I think your real estate agent was right. People that kind of lock into these small multifamilies do hold them for a long time. So I've heard that before. So why don't we go back now and sort of talk about your origin story? You made a comment, I think 5 or 10 minutes ago, about you never made a lot of money. So let's unpack that a little bit and talk about what you were doing before that first single family home rental, and just so everybody can get a feel for who you are and hopefully see themselves in you.
Sure. Well, just to go back in time a bit, say as a teenager, I started working when I was about 13, cutting grass and just doing little jobs like that. I graduated high school when I was 17. I was working landscaping full time. And by the age of 19, I realized I can't landscape forever. I got to do something better with my life. So I ended up joining the Navy, and I went into what they call an advanced electronics program. So I went to electronics school, graduated from that. Then I went to my first duty station, which was the country of Panama, in Central America.
Yep.
And while there, when I got there, I was about 20 years old at that time. When I got there, one of the first things I wanted to do was to try to figure out how I could go to college while I was in the Navy. And there was a Department of Defense 2-year school, kind of like a community college in the country of Panama, that I could start taking college classes at. So I started that.
Nice.
Went from there. After my time in Panama, I went to Puerto Rico for 3 years. Finished my schooling there, graduated with a bachelor's degree in business.
Congrats.
But I was still in the Navy. 3 years in Puerto Rico, my oldest son was born while I was there. Then I went up to the state of Maine, up in the Northeast. I think the Navy figured this guy's been in the tropical countries 5 years. Let's send him to one of the oldest spots in the country, one of the coldest spots. So the northeast corner of Maine.
Woo.
So anyway, I left the Navy after about 10 years, relocated to Virginia. And I was thinking by then, I was in my late 20s, I was thinking, I want to work in business. I majored in business. Let me get a job in business and make the big bucks. Because when you're in the military, you always think the grass is greener in the civilian life.
Yeah.
So when I get out, I find that a bachelor's degree is really good, but when it's from, almost 10 years ago and you're pushing 30, it's harder and you haven't worked in the business world, it's harder to get a good job. But eventually I got a job managing a company that relocated me to the area I'm in. And for that small period of my life, I was making a pretty decent salary. But once I got to the area I live in now, here in Virginia, in Shenandoah Valley, excuse me, I realized this line of work's not cut out for me. I want to do something different. I was reading the newspaper one day, because back then we read the newspaper. And so I wanted an ad, and it was for a local police department, kind of like a small town police department. And it said 2 things in that ad that caught my attention. It said something to the effect that college preferred and Spanish speakers encouraged to apply. And I was like, oh, I got a college degree and I can speak Spanish now. So
there you go.
So I applied and I got hired.
Nice. All right. Very cool. So you were a policeman for 20 years?
Yes, sir. 20 years. I just retired, I think about 7 months ago.
Well, congratulations for that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And one thing, I mentioned in the beginning, I've never made a lot of money. Police work, it's a blue-collar job. In a smaller town, it pays less than it does in a bigger area.
Sure.
But from day one, when I was about 30 years old when I got hired, I said a couple things to myself. I had 2 young boys, had my wife. We had bought our first home that we were living in. And I told myself I want to pay off my home earlier than 30 years. I didn't want to take 30 years to pay it off. I wanted to stick it out with my job to get a pension.
Okay.
And do that full 20 years.
Yeah.
And just to backtrack a bit, when I was in the Navy, I also learned about investing in the stock market. So I had started investing when I was about 21, 22 years old in stocks. Okay. So when I got hired at the police department, I kept up my investments at the very small scale. When I say small scale, there was times where I might be putting $5 a month extra on my mortgage and $20 a month into my stock account. There's just a little bit extra that I could save. And I used to have friends that would say like, Mark, you're only saving $20 a month, or you're only putting $5 to your mortgage. It's not worth it. And I would tell them it is worth it, because 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4. The dollars will add up over time.
Absolutely.
So my personal home I live in, I ended up paying that off in 17 years, roughly.
Nice.
And combine that with my little bit I was putting towards my stock investments that started compounding just a bit, started growing just a bit. So when we fast forward to 2017, when I was thinking about rental property, then I had my smaller stock portfolio, which gave me some confidence in investing. My personal home was paid off, so I didn't have to pay a mortgage out for where I live at.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of extra. When you're frugal and you get a little extra money, you don't spend it, you still save it. So I had a little bit extra money to play with. So that's when I bought my first rental house.
That's great. And again, I think you've heard me say this, but I'll say it again for others who haven't seen it. The key to financial freedom is good defense. And what you were talking about there is good defense, right? You live frugally. I call it sacrifice, call it whatever you want. But keeping your monthly expenses low and being diligent about that is the key to financial freedom. It's the key to happy life. So I just want to applaud you for that. And it's great. $5 a month, $20, it's extra. It all helps. So nice work.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm curious, now that you're retired, congratulations. You've proven to be good at buying, right? You've done 4 purchases, 3 houses and a triplex. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
Okay. What I see myself doing, well, the 4th property I bought was actually out of state.
Oh.
All my other properties were local to me. The 4th one I bought last August was about 600 miles away from me.
Okay.
Okay. And if you had told me 2 years ago when I started that I would ever buy a house out of my area, I probably would have said you're crazy, because I want to be able to see my house. I want to be able to touch it and walk in it. So, but then I read a book called Long Distance Investing that's written by David Green, published by Bigger Pockets Publishing Company. And after I read that book, I started thinking, well, out of my area, there are houses that are cheaper. And when I say cheaper, my area, a middle class, 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, if you're looking for a decent deal, might be somewhere around 100,000. Could be 95 to 110, 115, in that range. That's with a discount, like being a little aggressive on trying to get the price down.
Yep.
Where I was looking at, in the state I was looking in, I could find homes that would be distressed homes for 25 or 30,000, or renovated homes that would range from 45 to 60,000. And that house I bought 600 miles away was a recently renovated home. I bought it for 45,000, which means it's more than half the price of a local home, which means if I went to a bank to get a mortgage, which was more of a challenge to get a mortgage because now I was dealing with the bank out of state.
Yeah.
But I was successful getting it. But a 20% down payment on say a $50,000 house is half the down payment on a $100,000 house.
Yeah.
So which is good.
Yeah. So 600 miles from where you are. What state is that? I'm curious. We don't need to hide it. What's 600 miles away?
It's in the state of Alabama.
Oh, Alabama. Okay. All right. Got it.
Great. And I have found, the reason I found out about you, Mike, was when you did an interview with Clayton Mars.
Oh, yes.
And Clayton Mars, right. And Clayton Mars talks a lot about investing in Detroit, Indianapolis, and some other places where he calls his bread and butter like that 40,000 to 60,000 niche of single family homes. So with Alabama, on biggerpockets.com, I made some contacts in Alabama who helped me out in finding that house that I end up buying. So when you ask me where do I see myself in 3 to 5 years, I think where I see myself going is buying more properties out of state.
Okay. More
than likely in Alabama, but possibly somewhere else as well. As long as they're cheaper than where I'm at, and as long as I get financing. That's the key right now, is getting the financing to purchase them.
Yeah.
Okay, but what I think,
uh-huh.
Well, I was going to say, in 2019, I think I'm going to sell one of my local houses, and with what I get for that, get my down payment back and make a profit on it, and then take that cash and hopefully pay cash for one house in Alabama. So I'll have one free and clear. And then my goal would be to pick up 2 other single family homes during the year, probably in that same general area. So I'd have a net gain of, I'd go from 6 doors to 8 doors.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So let me give you just, again, right, just 2 friends talking here. Something that was very profitable for me that you should at least research and consider. What I heard you say is you're going to sell a house, take a profit, which is never wrong. Like just in stocks, never wrong taking a profit. In real estate, however, there is a way you don't have to pay the taxes, right? So
Right.
Sell, right? You're going to pay, the IRS, whatever, call it 15%, 20%, whatever it is in profit. You could 1031 exchange a house.
Right. I'm familiar with that. Right.
Yeah. You have to be careful because there's time horizons and you'll have to manage that. You would also likely have to purchase more because you have to go bigger, right? If you sell for 200, you got to go north of 200 in your acquisitions. But I could see you very easily 1031ing out of that house you have now into 3 or 4 in Alabama, but they would all be loans. I don't think you can juggle the capital to say, hey, this one's free and clear and these have loans, but it's something you should look at. Do yourself a favor because if you save, I don't know, 10 grand from paying the IRS, that's not a bad thing. It helps you get another house.
Right. That's a good point. And I've thought about what you're saying. Instead of paying cash for one house, possibly getting, like, say, several properties, but use financing. But then I guess my question would be, I've only used banks so far with conventional mortgages, and I'm finding the more mortgage you get, it can get a little tougher for a bank to give you another one.
Sure.
I looked a little bit at hard money. I've looked a little bit at private money, but I'm still questioning, do I want to go that route? Because I do have options of using a HELOC as well that could help me out, or something you may or may not have heard of this, something like crowd and fund.
Yeah, crowdfunding.
Something that Clayton Mars has talked about.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yep.
And I don't know much about that, but that's something else I might look into.
Yeah. So here again, right, 2 guys talking, right? So bank loans, your first 4 you've heard me talk about, which you've now done 4, extremely easy.
Right.
It's literally have good credit, have the down payment, you're golden, which you've clearly done. After 4, it gets harder because then they start looking for reserves and seasoned and all of those things. Not impossible. Getting from 5 to 10, it's not difficult. You'll probably have to either go to a bigger bank or you'll have to go to a smaller bank, which sounds kind of weird because smaller banks do what's called portfolio the loans, which means they keep them. They don't sell them to Wall Street. Right. So you would have to do some legwork and just be open like you are with us and say, hey, I'm looking to buy 4 properties in Alabama. I'm going to come in with 20 or 30% down. They're going to rent for X or Y. Would you be interested in financing all 4? I would like to close all 4 within a 2-week period. I'm going to 1031 exchange out. So do all that legwork first and get approved. And then I think you'd be in a much better financial space because you're going to save, I'm just going to say 10 grand. Just as a number, you don't have to pay the IRS that, and you'll keep moving forward. Your depreciation will go higher, and I think that'll be much better for you.
Okay, right. That makes sense. And part of me, and I appreciate you telling me that. Part of me really likes the idea of having something totally paid off, but at the same time, I know by doing the numbers, if I have one house paid off versus say having 4 houses with loans, but 4 tenants and paying me rent. Yeah. The numbers show the 4 homes is more profit. It's more income coming in.
Yeah, and that's one thing for sure. And again, so let's be clear, right? I'll put we borrowed everything as we were building our portfolio because what we wanted in the beginning is we wanted the biggest foundation so that when the tide rises, it takes us with us. But in fairness, we're now to the point where we're massaging our portfolio. So I'm actually paying off. We're refinancing. So my rates on my refinance are like in the 6s because I don't go to a bank. I go to cash call mortgage or something because they just do it quicker. But I'm actually taking loans out against my multifamilies, my triplexes and duplexes, and I am paying off houses. So your vision makes sense, but maybe that's 5, 6, 7 years from now. So if you play this out, you buy the 4, you let appreciation happen for a decade, you refi 2, and you use the proceeds from those 2 to pay off the other 2. So you can certainly get there. I'm just saying you might want to have time help you a little bit.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess one thing I'm still trying to figure out for myself is where exactly do I want to go with this? Do I want to say get the 2 more homes this year and I have 8 homes and kind of stop there for a bit? Do I want to go up to 10 homes, 12 homes and stop? Or I think I'm still young enough and I have time. Do I want to keep getting bigger and get up to 20, 25, 30 homes one day and try to get to that point, and then as quick as I can start paying some of them off? So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, you need to spend December, I don't know, trying to be 20 years older. Where do you want to be?
Right.
It's hard, right? And in fairness, I didn't do this for the first 12 or 13 years of our buying, right? For me, it was, I'm just going to buy the next one. I had no vision. I was just like the next deal. But now what I want is I want a collection of, I don't know, 15, 20 homes free and clear, kind of off to the side. Basically, I call that the Armageddon scenario, right? If 2008 rears its ugly head again and is worse, I'll always have that big pile paid off. And then I have these other pieces that are multifamilies, and those are laddered up to about 60%. So I, as you've heard in my videos, I'm always conservative. So I'm only going to 60% LTV because it's cash flows. And even if there's a tenant out, it doesn't really matter because I want low stress. What I would tell you to think about, and work this out with your wife, as you've heard, being in tight with your significant other is important. I would say, I would like, pick a number. I'd like to get to 5,000 a month free and clear, or, net positive cash flow, or whatever number you want to say. I wouldn't get all wrapped up in units because that's just the male ego talking. That's just 2 guys going, I want to have 30. I want to have, 20, 30's more than 20. That's not always the right answer. I think, as you were talking about being frugal in the beginning, right? Not only is your house paid off, but oh, by the way, on the first of the month, I have $5,000 show up that I don't need. That's pretty awesome. So I'd try to figure out that goal. And then you figure out how to get there. Okay. If $5,000's the number, then I buy a lot of houses. And then in 15 years, so that'll be like 2,000, I don't know what it'll be, 40 or something. I'm going to sell half of them and pay the other half off, and woohoo, life's good. Right. So lots of things to play with.
There it is. Good. Yeah. It's a cool thing about the internet and YouTube now. You're telling me this today, but say as time goes on, I'll forget some of it. I can always replay this video, hear the same advice again. And repetition is key. I can hear it over and over.
Good. I'm glad. Well, hopefully it's useful information.
Right. I think it is.
Okay, cool.
I think it is.
All right. Well,
I was going to say, it'll be interesting though, just from I'm biased because it's myself, but it'll be interesting to see where will I go. Will it 10 years from now, will I be thinking the best decision of my life, besides getting married and having my kids, was it buying that first rental house, or was it buying that first stock? Or what, how's life going to play? It's the unknown for all of us. How's life going to play out for us? We just don't know. Yeah, we just don't know. I look forward to talking to you over the years, and we'll find out where it ends up. That'll be good. That'll be good to figure out. That will be. I'm always curious. Like I just met you, say, today for the first time, but I've been watching your videos for a while. We've emailed, so I've heard your story. So at the same time, it'd be interesting to see where will you turn out. I know you're trying to help the world by helping us become better investors. And you have your own niche of what you're doing, which is good. It's helping a lot of people. But 10 years from now, will your channel explode and you have thousands of viewers, or where will you be? It's unknown. Yeah, it's unknown. I could tell you that I'm going to continue giving stuff away. I have no intention of selling anything. I don't. That doesn't excite me. That's not where I'm going. I want to give stuff away for free to help. I always share my opinion. Many times people will agree with it. But again, sometimes when I have my thoughts on the stock market or interest rates, people can disagree with me, which is totally okay.
But again, my channel, my thoughts. So that's what it is. So I really, my goal is 1,000 for this year. I've been playing with the idea of what my goal should be for the end of 2019. And at this point, I think I just add a 0, which I think is crazy, right? Go from 1,000 to 10,000. Really, really scary. But, that's what's fun for me now is seeing how many people I can touch and hopefully at least positively impact most days. That would be, that'd be fun for me. So that's what I hope happens.
All right. I hope so too. And the cool thing with the real talks you give, they're entertaining and informative to watch, but the interviews you're giving, you're up to, I don't know, 17, 18, 19 different interviews. Everyone has a different story. And by hearing different stories, like you have viewers, I'm sure, that have never met you, they've never met me, but they'll hear my story, they hear your story, and they'll pick up something that's going to help them on their own journey in life.
Yes.
And you and I will never know how that turns out. But maybe 20 years down the road, somebody's going to approach you and say, Michael, thank you. You got me started back in 2018.
Yes, I hope that happens, and I hope that happens for you as well. I think you're absolutely
I hope so.
right. That's why these interviews, I do them the way I do, because I want people to establish their value, what they're doing now, then tell everybody how you got started. Because that's what I would have wanted to see 15 or 16 years ago. So thank you for recognizing that, and it's been a lot of fun. So let's close this interview out. This is where I turn the interview over to you and share whatever you would like. Want to share your how to get a hold of you on Bigger Pockets or words of wisdom or anything you would like. I'll just be quiet and give it to you.
Okay, sure. And I haven't thought about what I want to say here, so I'm going to kind of wing this. But I guess one thing would be, if I can do this, anybody can do this. I've never made a lot in life. I've never had a very high-paying job. But all it takes is a little bit of frugality. It's, saving $1 here, pinching pennies there, putting a little bit extra toward your mortgage, keeping your car longer than your neighbors will keep theirs. But it compounds itself. The little bit you save now, it pays off in dividends in the future. But the hardest part, I think, is for someone to just take that first step and to start saving. But once they do, it can just start compounding and build upon itself. And with me saying that, the hope is I'm at the point in my life where it's going to start compounding and just get better and better.
Very, very cool.
So, but the last thing, I'll give a plug to everyone to watch your channel as much as they can.
Thank you.
At the same time, there's other channels out there. Clayton Morris is good. Millennial Mike, who you interviewed recently, he has a great channel. Websites that are good for beginners to go to, biggerpockets.com is probably the best real estate website out there. I did mention stock investing. If anyone wants to invest in stocks, there's a website called fool.com, like the Motley Fool, fool.com. That's where I got my knowledge on how to invest in stocks. It's like the Bigger Pockets and the Motley Fool are twins, except one's real estate and one's stock investing. And both sites will talk about frugality and just being frugal.
Very, very cool. That's a great closing section. Being frugal is critical. Again, I call it playing good defense, because it all starts there, right? You can't win the game if you don't have a good defense. It's just not possible. It doesn't matter how much you make. If you make $1 million a year and you spend $1 million a year, it just doesn't matter, right? There's nothing left over. So I appreciate your time. It's been a lot of fun. I'm glad we were able to make this work today, Mark, and I appreciate you reaching out and being flexible. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Mike. Great talking with you.